Get in there, Lewis. Miracle. No, he didn't even say miracles do happen, does he? Because that sounds a bit disrespectful. But after the best part of 1,000 days, Lewis Hamilton is a Formula One race winner again. My name's Dan. I'm joined by Alex, and we are going to talk about the British Grand Prix that happened, well, just yesterday. We're on time
Keen.
this week.
It's because you're desperate to talk about Lewis Hamilton, isn't it? You can tell he's come in with a real pep in his step to this episode.
Well, that and the fact I'm not around tomorrow or Wednesday. But we have to find time for these things.
Logistics get in the way. It was, even as a I'm not a non-Hamilton fan, but I'm not an openly Hamilton fan or Mercedes supporter. But even I quite enjoyed hearing another get in there, Lewis. It actually held a little bit of meaning this time. You know, when we were going through like the 2020 season and stuff like that, where it was just, well, Lewis Hamilton's won again, you know, and that whole dominance. And you think, well, you don't need to say get in there, Lewis, do you? And it's a little bit like what Max and GP were going through the last couple of years, where there's no emotion in the race win radio anymore because it's like, yeah, well, we knew that was going to happen. So to hear a genuinely powerful get in there, Lewis, was quite nice, wasn't it?
It had volume. It had girth to it.
Yes, didn't it just?
It had everything about it. It was just good. It was great. It was wholesome. I mean, yeah, fair enough. The British fans, they're kind of spread betting a little bit at the moment with Hamilton, Russell and Norris. And of all three of them, Hamilton was probably the least likely to have won that Grand Prix based on current form. And I guess a lot of the British fans were as pleasantly surprised by that result as was the rest of the world. And, do you know, like... Yes, he definitely lost his mojo after Abu Dhabi or whatever it's pronounced, because you're Australian, so you pronounce it differently to the rest of the world, don't you? Abu Dhabi. And he lost it. And it's just good to see him back. It is so good to see him back. And I don't necessarily know whether that's going to be the kick up the arse that he needs to kind of, he'll be there and thereabouts next week and the week afterwards and the week after that. Might not be, might never win a race again. But, scenes.
Yeah, and it's nice that Mercedes have worked it out. And we did touch on this a little bit last week, and it has been building. And I think everyone always knew it was going to happen, right? Because they're too good an outfit to not work it out eventually. And they have worked it out now and seem to have worked it out really well. And I saw an interesting take from someone the other day that suggested that this isn't Red Bull falling off, and there's already all the chat of like, oh, is this because Newey's left? No, of course it's not because Newey's left. It's been like 6 weeks. Like, F1 doesn't work that quickly. They're working on the 26 car now. Like, it's because, and well, it might not be, but this comment, which I found really interesting, was Red Bull have reached the limit of how good you can make this spec of car. They got there really quickly, but now they've got there. And you can't take a second off the lap time every 3 weeks forever to the point that they're flying around at the speed of light. And that essentially Red Bull just came, great fun. It'll happen at that new Saudi track, won't it? There'll be like a hypertube section that the car goes into, like Mario Kart.
Bit of Rainbow Road.
Yeah, but I think it's a really valid point that Red Bull smashed it early. They worked out the formula, they nailed the formula, and they literally raced ahead. And now everybody else, 18 months, 2 years later, has actually now worked it out, and they're getting to that same level. And so we've got this wonderful plateau. Everyone's hitting their head on the ceiling, and it's making F1 genuinely good at the minute. Like, we have had, and this was a great stat that I looked up before we started, more unique race winners already in 12 races this year. We're not even at the end of the year. We've had 12 races. We've had 6 unique winners, and there were 5 in total in 2022 and 23. Which is just madness, but it's very excellent.
If it continues, I think there'll be an argument to say that these could be the greatest set of regulations that Formula One have ever put together.
Okay.
Like if we get what we've had so far until the end of the year, which rolls into next year as well, there'll obviously be upgrades.
We've got one more, don't we?
Year, but as you said, they're not going to suddenly shave off 4 seconds a lap around Silverstone or Spa. You can't physically do that at the point that you're going at the speed you are, unless you just put a bigger engine in, which obviously you're not allowed to. But normally, yes, you're right. You get somebody that bolts out the gate, and then everybody, regardless of what set of specs it is, spend the rest of the time going, oh, bloody hell. Christ, we got some catching up to do, and maybe one catches up, and you get towards the end of that regulation spec, and you go, well, it's nice to see a couple of teams that might be able to win a race or something. But actually now we've got 18 months left of these specs, and we've got 4 teams at the moment that you could genuinely pick 7 of those 8 drivers to win a Grand Prix. I think we're probably at the limit there. I don't think we're going to get a 5th team that are going to join.
No,
that party.
Aston were trying. They were threatening to do it, and just haven't quite. Because I just think they're. What I will say about Aston,
they've cashed their chips. They've accepted their losses, and they're already working on 20.
But I also think as well that Aston, if there was more stability at Aston in terms of their facilities, or if their facilities had come 4 years earlier, 3 years earlier, I think Aston probably would have been very much in the hunt now. I think it's probably not easy designing a car while moving house and building a new, wind tunnel all at the same time. So what they've actually probably done is very well to get to where they did get to, but now where they're going to fall behind is that established setup. But no, I think it's a great point. I don't think anyone else is going to join them. Fair play to Haas. They're hanging on there. I mean, okay, potentially Nico's P6 was slightly helped by, George Russell just stopping inadvertently with not enough water on the wettest weekend I've ever seen. That maybe that slightly inflated things a little bit, but he was comfortably quick all weekend. And I don't think, they're going to be a genuine compete. I think it's Hulkenberg being an excellent driver, absolutely wringing the neck of that car. But this is great fun, and Perez is shit.
He's so bad.
He's not good.
He's so
stinky.
Bad. I think. Well, everybody was surprised when Red Bull kind of announced that, and announced it so early as well. There'll be a lot of other driver signings that people will be they'll raise an eyebrow to. I think Hulkenberg, as you said, will be another one. He's moving off to a team that kind of has the same aerodynamic properties as a lot of that stuff in your background in your new house. Also, Lance Stroll getting another contract. There'll be people that won't be surprised, but there'll be people that'll go, that's a bit disappointing. But Checo to get it so early off the back of a bunch of mediocre performances, and someone that has slipped down the pecking order because those other teams have caught up, and ultimately they've got better drivers than Checo. I think the thing that's like a real damning statement is Christian Horner coming out to the press and going, well, we all thought this new contract was going to help him, and actually it seems to have made no difference at all. That to me turns around and goes, your days are still numbered here, Checo.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't pull your finger out quick, you're Dunsky.
Yeah. And what's really damning about it is, and we've said this a number of times, I love James Vowles, and I particularly love James Vowles in front of a camera. That man is very, very, very good with a microphone in front of him and what he says. And he's very eloquent, and he makes a lot of sense. He's got very cleverly constructed messaging at all times. And in the space of a week, James Vowles went from saying, Logan knows that he needs to step up. We've told Logan he needs to step up. We're not going to be silly about anything here when, we're talking about next year here. And then this week, James Vowles is going, Logan really needs to step up, or we've got some decisions that need to be made, which in James Vowles speak is saying Logan has already packed his suitcase, and it's just a case of whether he can convince us he should stay at the door for the next 12 races. And Logan Sargent has outqualified Checo Perez, I think it's like 5 times in like the last 7 or 8 races or something like that. And this is a bloke that's about to get kicked out of Williams halfway through the year, is consistently out-qualifying and finishing GPs in front of Sergio Perez in a Red Bull. Fair play, the Williams looked actually quite handy this week, and I'm disappointed for them that they didn't quite manage a double points finish. That would have been, I think they were 9th and 11th. If that had just been a 9th and 10th, that would have been absolutely mega. But for Checo to be getting absolutely outclassed by the bloke that everyone assumes is going to lose his seat mid-year, either for a child, or the new talk is that Esteban Ocon might move early from Alpine to the Williams so that they can bring Jack Doohan in as a rookie. I mean, just wow. It was when, sorry, I've gone on a massive soliloquy here, but you've got me wound up now, Dan. When you've got Checo Perez in the gravel in Q1, purely of his own accord, right? And he's facing back towards the track the wrong way in the gravel and is saying, can a marshal just push me back onto the track, please, and I'll be fine? And his own team were having to go, no, that's not allowed, Sergio. They can't do that. You'll be disqualified. The bloke's driven in F1 for a decade, hasn't he? And you're telling me he doesn't know that you can't have your car pushed back onto the circuit by a marshal?
How strong are these Silverstone marshals as well? That you're just going to rock up in a... I think, but I'm not sure. I think Formula One cars have got a bit of horsepower,
a little
more
bit,
than your average
some horses.
road car. And if that some horses are unable to get yourself out of what is essentially kind of a kid's sandbox with slightly bigger grains of sand, I'm not convinced some kind of tubby, overweight,
Dave and Charlie.
middle-aged... Yeah,
Dave and Charlie from Leicester.
waddling. They do a fantastic job, to be fair.
Right, mate, I got you. Mate, put her in neutral. Mate, neutral.
Dave.
Right,
Dave.
ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, she's in an... All right. Where's Martin? Martin, get him in.
Checo, left hand down. Checo, left hand down.
Hand.
Yeah,
left hand.
Left
hand.
Checo, left. Okay, ready. And put... Nah, sorry,
she's not moving, mate.
It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
She is
I think the issue is, Checo, is the fact that you've buried like a 1-ton car in a bunch of gravel that... I don't know how deep gravel traps are, but I would imagine they're fairly deep. And
I don't know. Wet gravel as well.
Yeah, wet
soggy gravel.
Soggy. I mean, yeah, why? Honestly, the bloke's lost the plot. And do you know what? Do you know what the weird thing is? And you said this before we started recording. Is the fact that now, again, there is a weight behind the story that Daniel Ricciardo moved from Visa Carb Crash App, WhatsApp, Whatsit.com racing back to the father team. Bearing in mind, he last week was close or rumoured to be being booted out of Formula One because he wasn't cutting the mustard.
He's about to go out of the junior team and now he's going to fall upwards into the main team.
Honestly.
What a season. What a season in every way.
Do you know what the issue is? No, the issue is Red Bull have clearly overspent in previous years on their biscuit tin. And now there's disharmony in Milton Keynes because there aren't enough hobnobs and custard creams and bourbon biscuits to go around.
Well, this is the other thing now. While we're going to just talk about silly driver moves, Bloody Toto's still suggesting that he's a chance to take Max for next year. And if you look at the progression, it's becoming less an outrageous suggestion, particularly with everything that's going on. And then Carl Sainz still doesn't have a seat for next year. He doesn't know where he's going. He might not go anywhere at this rate. And there's so much happening. There is so much happening. In the middle of all that, Lewis Hamilton's good again. So, what's going on in the world? What is going on in the world? Take a breath.
It always helps when it rains.
Yes.
Rain, we don't say it much in the UK because we don't really get a summer anyway, but rain with racing cars is good. Yeah. Rain when you want to go to the beach, not so good. Rain when you want to play some recreational UK summer sport called cricket, far from ideal. And obviously if you're having a nice little Mr. Whippy in the sunshine and it starts pissing down, not the best combination. However, when you put kind of 20 high-skilled Formula One drivers on a track with bits and bobs going on and you make it slippy and then you're not really sure what tyres you should be on when you should be on them and you don't actually give it to the point that it's monsoon so that the FIA gets so scared they go, stop.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. No. You couldn't. We know you're the 20 best in the world, but you couldn't possibly drive in the rain. It's perfect. It's amazing. It's the best thing that ever happens.
We also had the best form of rain this weekend in that we had a double burst where the first one was sort of there or thereabouts, and then, it was a little bit longer, and there was maybe a little bit of radar chat, and it was very windy, and it was patchy, and, it wasn't just like this big wall coming in. And it was the fact that we'd had a lot of rain building up over the weekend, which meant the track never really rubbered in. So the track was constantly evolving in the dry bits as well. It got very much to an interstage, but never far away from then stopping and drying again. And then, the fact that, he was incredibly slow doing it, but the fact that you've got someone like Charles Leclerc going a couple of laps early, taking a punt on it, and then you've got McLaren, which we'll come on to in a second, because I'm going to come off the long run on that. McLaren thinking, oh, no, this is fine. Instead of double boxing our drivers and losing maybe a second and a half, let's send the bloke round for another lap and lose 18 seconds. Oh, that was a good idea, wasn't it? But the fact that Piastri got around another lap, albeit a slow one, without a major incident where he's going to stick at the wall or whatever, you think that was genuinely ideal. And then the track got wetter at the end as well, because Lewis Hamilton cried more than it rained and just made the track wetter than it had been all weekend. Like, someone's cutting onions in my living room and he's there on the team radio, can't get his words out, trying to drive around cops. And you think, this is just every week. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Charlie Whiting had the right idea, get the sprinklers out there, and we're flying.
Do you know if Dubai sort their shit out with their cloud seeding that they're trying to do and stop flooding the fucking place every time they do whatever they're doing? If we could get some form of FIA / Dubai Meteorological Society collaboration going on here, we could be in for some seriously good weekends.
Well, if you believe Matt Letizia and Steve Harmison,
which I don't, but carry on.
There were already cloud seeding in the UK, and that's why it's been such a shit summer. So maybe maybe the Silverstone organisers are the ones seeding it.
But it's important, because if you put your tweet out there and you go just a thought.
Just a thought.
Because what you do there is in case everybody turns around and says you're an idiot, you've caveated it. You've just gone, well, I've just had a thought.
It's just a thought.
I don't believe it.
It's just a thought. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. I've got some thoughts on McLaren, because they have thrown away a 1-2 at the British Grand Prix. I really, to be honest with you, are quite set in stone 1-2 at one point. There was a moment as we were getting towards that first inters where it was wet, but we weren't quite there yet. Those two orange cars were going, I'm going to throw it out there, and it's just a thought, twice as fast as every other car on the track. They are making genuine, like, not lunges, but genuine late on the brakes, classic Danny Rick era, send it down the inside because I'm brave than you are into this corner moves, while there are cars that aren't making it round corners, right? They were looking superb. And then for some reason, they've thought, well, no, let's, no. Just no. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. How about, is that the Optimus strategy? What's the Perez version of the Optimus strategy? And they've gone with that. Every decision they made was an absolute howler. And it's upsetting because you've got Lando Norris, who's driving better than he's ever driven right now, and in some instances may even be driving better than Max Verstappen, because I think he's in a different headspace.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, this is going back to last week a little bit, but the fact that Verstappen is now having to go back into 2021 racing mode and get his elbows out because he's a little bit worried about someone says, I think, an awful lot about where that McLaren and where Norris is. But then you've got Oscar Piastri, who I actually think, now everyone knows Oscar Piastri is very good. I think he might be better than people thought, or at the very least, his personal development trajectory might be steeper than people expected it to be, because he's now looking incredible as well, and so calm on the radio, and he seems like he's got like Alonso level chill in the car. And I know I'm a McLaren fan, but seeing them just go, no, we don't want to be on the top two steps of that podium. Like, it puts a lot of additional praise, I think, on, I want to say it's Hannah Schmidt at Red Bull, the strategist there, because she just nails it quietly, week in, week out.
She's got only one car to worry about, mate.
She's only got one car to worry about. She can use car 2 for data and testing.
It doesn't matter.
You don't very rarely hear about Red Bull strategy, and that is a little bit like umpires in sports. If you don't hear about the umpires at any point during a game, they've done a very good job because they've done what they needed to do quietly. McLaren, poach her, please, or do some tutoring or something, because you've let yourselves down there, and you've let yourselves down a couple of times this year on the strategy side. You need to sort it out.
Certainly when you hear when like the Ferrari strategist becomes more famous than the Ferrari drivers, then that does become a slight issue, doesn't it? When you're more excited to hear what the strategist has to say over the radio than what Charles has to say back, which is kind of where we are with McLaren right now.
Yeah, too many questions.
As I say, I do also think the fact that the Red Bull one will have one person to worry about, because they'll possibly get a WhatsApp come through and it'll be from Checo and they'll go, "What do you want me to do?" And the response will go, "It doesn't matter, mate." Yeah. It'll be really passive aggressive and just do whatever the fuck you want. You're running in 14th. I'm gonna stop this lap. Yeah, if you like. Fine.
Okay.
Don't worry. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll sort it out for you. Yeah, do you think it's a good idea though? Does it matter, Checo? Really? Just do what you want to do, mate. But what I will say, going back to where we obviously had the conversation about the soggy gravel and the rain and the perfect storm and everything like that, there are going to be some massive losers from these kind of weekends. And ultimately it didn't. And I don't know how close it was to working for McLaren. But however, if out of nowhere in these changeable conditions, Oscar had stayed out and he managed to do the lap and all of a sudden the radar comes through and goes, "Oh, actually, Moses is about and it's now no longer raining and the sun's beaming down on there," it turns out to be like a master call. And actually then the decision to box somebody else becomes an idiotic one. So there is going to be someone to lose. But I do see what you're saying. It feels like if it happens at the moment, it happens the wrong way for McLaren rather than anybody else.
Well, the big one, I think, and strategy is very, very hard. I've played F1 Manager and it's hard. But in that
What's
moment,
your record on F1 Manager? Just out of
I
interest.
played like two
qualified
Grand Prix, and that was quite enough.
What are the results? I need to know.
This was 2 years ago. I can't remember, but it's hard. Okay. There's a lot to consider.
If you'd won a race, you'd have remembered. So therefore, I'm going to say that your opinion is null and void. However, you can continue with it because it is your podcast.
I'm not saying I know anything about strategy, but what I'm saying is you've got every car boxing, and we all knew we were boxing, and they told Lando to box like a third of the way through the lap. And you've got Oscar running in P2 behind him, about 8/10 behind. And you've got Crofty and Martin Brundle on comms saying, "Right, well, this is easy, actually, for McLaren. You need about 2.5 seconds for a pit stop. Piastri's 8/10 behind. You're not allowed to go unnecessarily slowly to back people up, but you've got 2 seconds to the Mercedes behind you. So you can just ease off through the last third of the lap, pull yourself 1.3 behind Lando, 1.8 behind Lando. You're not even going to touch the Mercedes at that point. Okay, Oscar is going to lose half a second on that pit stop, waiting behind to double stack. There's just no computer simulation in the world that would have suggested that Oscar Piastri would have been less than half a second slower doing another lap on old mediums, I think they were, in conditions that everyone had decided was now an intercondition. You just think your balance of probabilities here, even if you botch your double stack and he loses 2, 3, 4 seconds, at worst, that's as bad as it might have been in the best case scenario of sending him round again. And I think it was just, when you're 1-2, Leclerc, I have no issue with them making a stupid but very aggressive call. The bloke was in like P14 or something. He'd been nowhere. Take a hero run at it. See what happens. Don't take a hero run at it when you're 1-2 and you have arguably the fastest car all weekend in all conditions on all tires. Now's the time to be boring. Be dull, be boring, be unexciting, and just let it sort itself out. Don't shoot yourself in both feet and your cock all at once. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. That's me off the long run, which I think you're going to go off the long run now, just to finish us off. About probably the fate of a lot of people in the UK and around the world and across sports, not even just F1. But you were working on Sunday. You were unable to watch the race live. You like F1 a lot. We do an F1 podcast where it generally helps to have been able to see the race in some level of detail. Dan, were you able to do that?
No, I was not.
That's a shame.
And the bit that I can't work out that I'm most annoyed about, I can't quite put my finger down on it. The easy one here is, as you said, it becomes very difficult to watch the Grand Prix after the event. without having your subscriptions or your VPNs or Fire Sticks or whatever it might be that you might have access to. I have Sky. However, when I got back to the hotel to go on Sky TV, I clicked on catch up because I thought, well, the race is finished. Surely straight away, I can just click back on this and I can watch it back again because I have Sky. I could have watched it, but I couldn't because I was working. So therefore, let me kind of scrub
You also,
back
if someone was at home, you could have pressed pause on your telly at 2:59 for 8 hours and then come home at midnight and press play, and it would have been there for you. Or recorded it yourself, or there were a number of ways you could have done that manually.
Yeah, so then that wasn't there. They did offer me the opportunity to watch qualifying if I wanted to, which I didn't, so I didn't bother. So then I was looking around, and obviously when you go onto YouTube, you go on the highlights and you see this thing, and it's got a timestamp of 8 minutes and a second. So I went, well, that's garbage. So I did some more Googling and see if I could find any other kind of way of watching this, and I couldn't. So obviously my enjoyment last night was kind of confined to an 8 minute and 1 second YouTube video for the British Grand Prix highlights. There might be longer ones out there available now. I don't know. But 8 minutes and 1 second isn't really long enough to provide you with much information or much kind of feel as to how the day has gone. Obviously, I saw Lewis win. Thrilled. I did see Lando kind of slip through his pit box, which kind of allowed then Lewis to go past him at the end. I did see the two Mercedes go straight on at turn one in kind of unison, which then allowed those McLarens to be right on the rear bumper of the two Mercs, like instantaneously. And I did see Max go around the outside of Lando to go P2. But other than that, there wasn't really much to talk about in 8 minutes. After they've showed the start a couple of times, after they've showed a pit stop once or twice, and this, that, and the other, there's not much. But the other thing that really pisses me off, and obviously as a YouTube person, someone that does the YouTube for could I call it a living at the moment? I don't know. But anyway, that's what I'll use. The reason why you make things 8 minutes and 1 second is so that YouTube allow you to put mid-rolls in the middle of your videos. There's no reason other than that as to why you would make your content 8 minutes and a single digit of seconds long other than to put mid-rolls in your video. Yeah. Why the fuck is Formula One worrying about putting mid-rolls in their videos? Is their budget that small that they're worrying about the few £1,000s that they're going to pick up from YouTube ad revenue through the end of the season to go in their Christmas party pot? Mate, if that's what you want to do, and if you want to drive people towards F1 TV and Sky Sports and Now TV and dodgy Fire Sticks and whatever else it might be and how you watch things back in full, don't even bother with 8 minutes. Just give people 5. Because then they'll be so pissed off, they'll have to go and get a subscription.
Well, I think there is and obviously I sort of come at this from two angles. I come at this from a digital marketing angle, which is what I do now, and a sports media angle that I did before. And I understand the difficulties of TV licensing for like domestic stuff for cricket, let alone international and whatever. But I know for a fact that F1 TV do produce a race in 30, and 30 minutes sounds like a great amount of time for 80 minute on average F1 race. You know, you'll find 30 minutes worth of action, even if on a slower race you have to show something a couple of times or whatever, then that's fine. So what I don't get, as you say, a couple of grand maybe worth of ad rev for your 8 mid-roll terrible highlights on YouTube. If you got a sponsor for your highlights, and F1 don't mind getting a sponsor, put them behind a login on the so you've got some data value from people there, and then you can have, you know, the official highlights partner of Formula One. They have banners all around that video, and then you make your 30-minute highlights video accessible there. You've paid with all of your personal data, which I don't know if you've ever seen the cookie list on the F1 website. It's about 850 vendors long. It is genuinely outrageous. But there's, you know, surely they can make the same amount of money by getting an individual sponsor for that. Put ads in it. It doesn't matter. Put ads in it. Put ads 15 minutes in for that one sponsor. It's achievable. But yeah, no, it is daft. It's a little bit like cricket. It can be very hard at times to actually go and find good highlights of things that you want to watch. And that's you as the most engaged fan possible, actively seeking out these highlights, not a casual fan who might watch it if you get it presented to you. Like,
Yeah.
it's troublesome. I understand that it may not be something that they or the media team for F1 wants to do. It's something that I came up against a lot in sports media. There are a lot of things I would have liked to have done from a fan point of view to make stuff easier, more accessible, more of it. And you sort of have these ideas and you tell the corporate team, and the corporate team go, no. And there's probably a lot of that at play. But you own the sport. Liberty owns, the rights to everything. Sort it out and make it easier for people to watch it if they can't watch it live. And Sky, get it on bloody on-demand catch-up ASAP, please.
Yeah.
Ameeds, and you would have been fine. You would have been
no
fine.
sense. But anyway, it is what it is. I watched 8 minutes of it. I saw Hamilton win and I was happy. So
there it is.
Fine.
There it is. I think we're all happy. Even the non-Hamilton fan, even me as a McLaren fan, I was quite happy seeing any other Grand Prix as well. Don't really care so much. But let Lewis win one more British Grand Prix with Mercedes. That was a nice story. And then we've got 2 more before the summer break, and then Sergio Perez won't be on the grid anymore. So that'll be a nice story as well.
It's good for the culture. Good for the
Great
culture.
for the culture.
And as you said, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be without Sergio Perez. We'll be without Logan Sargent. Who knows where Daniel Ricciardo might be?
Williams.
Who knows if Kimi Antonelli's going to be old enough to sit in a Formula One car? Who knows if Jack Doohan gets a drive? I nearly called him Mick then, but that's his dad. Who knows?
Who knows?
But we do get a weekend off, though.
We get a weekend off, so we'll be back next week. We haven't talked at all about the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is off next. We'll have a little chat about that next week ahead of that one. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this special early in the week off the long run edition. We've had a lot of long runs today, but I think it's a good state of play that we're here with a lot of things to be concerned about rather than just like, oh, Max won again. It was another slow one, which it looked like it might have been at the start of the year. So yay, Formula One. This is great. It's all happening. Dan, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at Dan Jat and
Dan Jads.
Get your teeth in, boy. You can just find me there.
There you go.
I don't really talk.
There
too
aren't
much
that many
Formula
Dan
One, neither of
Jadses.
us do, to be fair.
No.
But more importantly, I mean, if you do want to follow it, just search for Lapdown Pod. It's all over the place, isn't it?
Everywhere.
And that's probably the place to discuss Formula One things.
Yeah, lapdownpod@gmail.com if you've got any particularly hot takes that you'd like us to talk about. And if you do, we'll talk about them next week. And if you don't, we'll make up our own.
And if you want to watch Alex stream F1 Manager, where do they watch that?
I probably could. It's twitch.tv/Hey Look It's Alex, but
there you go.
I think it might be a little slow for the old high energy streams. I don't know how far you get through in a 3-hour stream, but if you want to do that, 8 p.m. GMT, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right. We'll see you all next week.
Yeah.